Thanks for downloading Ehnother Podcast from ehnotherpodcast.com. Today's show can be found in many ways. iTunes, the ehnotherpodcast.com webpage, and now can be found on Stitcher.com. You can now stream the latest show anywhere with the Stitcher app, on your computer, even on your boss's computer. Ehnother Podcast is now at your fingertips every day of the week and at your convenience. Enjoy today's episode of Warlock Wednesdays. ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor. Hello everyone and welcome to Warlock Hour. It is Warlock Wednesdays here with Rayzor, and let's get right to the show this week. I'm actually recording this on Tuesday. Normally I record on Mondays, but I've not been feeling 100%. I'm feeling better now than I was earlier today when I woke up. I went to work, I did my shift, made it through, got home. I'm feeling a little bit better than I was this morning, but not 100%, but I still want to get the show out. And so here we go. We're going to go with the comic book releases, as we always start off every Warlock Wednesday. And from DC Comics this week, a lot of number 22s, again with the whole New 52 reboot, which is now into almost its second year of completion, with two more months before that happens. We are at 22 months of this New 52, and so a lot of issues are going to be number 22, but here they are. Action Comics number 22, Emmy Commie Girls number 5, Detective Comics number 22, Green Arrow number 22, and Green Lantern number 22. From Marvel this week, new miniseries Deadpool Kills Deadpool, number 1 of a 4-part miniseries, Avengers number 15, and a second miniseries starts this week, Dexter number 1 of a 5-part miniseries for those Dexter fans out there, Iron Man number 12, and a new ongoing series, Superior Foes of Spider-Man number 1. The Independents this week, I only found 2 that piqued my interest from Dynamite, both from Dynamite Entertainment, I might add. Red Sonja number 78, which makes this 2 weeks in a row that a Red Sonja comic comes out, and I'm not sure if that's the norm, as I won't be collecting this until Gail Simone starts writing it. However, this is 2 weeks in a row that I've reported a Red Sonja comic, so I'm not sure if this is just an aberration or the fact that last week was a June issue and this week is now a July issue. So that could be it too. So who knows? And Red Sonja is going to be rebooted, I believe, this month. Like July is the month that the reboot begins. So maybe they're putting out an issue every week to get to 80 and then rebooting it at number 1. So if that were the case, number 1 would come out July 24th. Moving on, the other comic from Dynamite Entertainment is Shadow number 15. So that is the comic book releases for this week. And while we're on the subject of comics, I will say that I have a very light pull week this week, but just because I'm not reading the issues doesn't mean that you might not like them. That's why I give you 5 that kind of pique my interest, but I'm not necessarily collecting from DC, 5 from Marvel, 2 major companies, obviously, and then I read through the independents and see which ones might pique interest out there. If you have a comic that you collect that you want me to keep you apprised of, you can send it in the comments, send me an email through the Ehnother Podcast website, so I know what you're listening to, what you're wanting to read. These are the comics that interest me or that I'm reading, so that's why I do it like that. Okay, so moving on to box office news. And not surprising this week that Monsters University stays on top of the board. I thought the Heat might pull out an upset and move into the number 1 spot. However, it did not. Monsters University raked in another $45.6 million, bringing its 2-week total up to $170.4 million. The Heat did come in second this week. It brought in $39.1 million. That's very impressive for this action comedy, buddy cop comedy with two females rather than two males being the lead, that being Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. With a budget of about $43 million, this is well on its way to crack its budget and be a very profitable movie with 39.1 in the first weekend. Now, I did say in the past that this coming out after June 15th means you're competing with big movies every single week. Can the Heat hold a strong contention into next week? The way I would look at it is, as long as it drops less than 55%, like if the drop from this week to next week is no greater than negative 55%, then it will be quite a successful film. Number 3 this week was World War Z, bringing in another $29.7 million. Number 4 was the other new movie, White House Down, with $24.8 million, and this would have to be considered a flop. Our second flop of the summer, our first being After Earth. This is $24.8 million opening weekend, a fourth place spot for a movie that cost $150 million plus marketing to make. So it'll probably be in the range of $160 to $180 million after marketing costs, and it only made $24.8 million, so it's such a big flop. And maybe it's because, one, we've already seen this movie in Olympus Has Fallen, and two, it's a Roland Emmerich film, and every time you see a Roland Emmerich movie, he's blowing up the White House, so it's nothing new. I think they hoped that the stars Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx might bring in people, but obviously they were more interested in seeing the Monsters University, which is probably mostly parents bringing kids, or seeing The Heat. Now, I will say this about the number 1 and number 2 before I move on to the rest of the list. If The Heat was 3D, I guarantee you it would have been number 1. A lot of the Monsters University sales, you have to realize, is coming from their 3D sales, which are a little higher. So not all of it, but there's a big chunk of it. So it's hard to say exactly whether The Heat was number 1, but here's a little figure. Average screen making money, like the amount of money it would make per one screen. So if it plays in our theater on 2 screens, Monsters University does, and The Heat only plays on 1. So for one of those 2 screens of Monsters University, it made $11,391 for the entire weekend. So that's a lot of money. However, The Heat, which was only on 1 screen at our theater, and is at about 820 less screens than Monsters University overall, made $12,296. So definitely those $3 extra prices that you're paying for 3D helped Monsters University, but the screen percentage shows that The Heat actually did better. So maybe if The Heat was playing on more screens, it would have actually been number 1. Dropping to 5th this week, Man of Steel with another $20.7 million, and it's kind of going to be slowing down again. As I said last week, this is the time of year where you're competing every week with something that's big or projected to be big. This is the End slips to 6th with another $8.7 million. Now You See Me is in 7th place with $5.6 million. Fast and the Furious 6 is in 8th place with $2.4 million. Holding on to the number 9 spot is Star Trek Into Darkness with $2.1 million. And The Internship rounds out the top 10 with $1.4 million this week. So that is your top 10. And your new movies, which actually, by the time you're listening to this, are already out, because both movies open at 7 o'clock tonight, Tuesday night, the night I'm recording. So about an hour ago, these movies opened. Despicable Me 2 and The Lone Ranger. The reason for this is thanks to our neighbors to the south. It is a long weekend for the United States as they're celebrating the Independence Day. By the way, on Sunday, here in Canada, we celebrated Canada Day. So I'm doing this almost smack dab in the middle of those 2 holidays. Actually, I am doing this smack dab in the middle of these 2 holidays. But, Monday was Canada Day. I don't know where I was going with that, not Sunday. Monday was Canada Day. So happy Canada Day. A little late, day late. By the time you listen to it, too late. 2 days late. However, as I said, they are holidays in the States means usually Tuesday, Wednesday openings, because this Thursday will be July 4th in the States, and that is definitely a huge holiday for them. That is their Independence Day. So, that being said, 2 movies coming out tonight, yesterday for those of you listening on Wednesday, and the only 2 coming out this week, Despicable Me 2 and The Lone Ranger. And it will be a fight between The Lone Ranger and Despicable Me 2, I think, to race for the top. The only question is, Monsters University, is it going to lose a lot of people to Despicable Me 2, or are the crowd types very different? Yes, they're both animated films. Yes, they're both geared towards kids, but I still think that Disney Pixar has their target audience, and any other animation studio has a different target audience sometimes. I've seen quote-unquote kids movies, like I think Epic, after it came out, it wasn't phenomenal. I mean, it did very well. It was successful because of it being a kids movie, but when you compare it to The Croods, which was the movie that came out before Epic, The Croods did, let's see if I just look this up really quickly. Okay, the Croods did, they've made $184 million. Now, they've been out for 15 weeks. Take that into consideration as I read the Epic total. Epic has been out for 6 weeks, and it's made $103 million. And these films are going to continue to drop in price as more kids' movies comes out, or in profits as more kids' movies seem to come out in the summer. So there's no way that Epic's going to catch The Croods. So The Croods was the better film. In this instance, will Monsters University be the better film of Monsters University and Despicable Me 2? We'll have to wait and see. I think this weekend it will be better, but overall it could fluctuate. Alright, so moving into the entertainment section even further as we get into the entertainment news. As reported this week by The Hollywood Reporter, not a sponsor, Sony Pictures has plans to make a Captain Planet movie. Captain Planet and the Planeteers will be a live-action motion picture based on the environment-saving animated hero, in an effort to inform younger viewers about serious environmental issues. So, for those of you who are old enough to remember the 1990 series, Captain Planet and the Planeteers, they are making a full-fledged feature film out of this at Sony Pictures. Not sure how I believe about this. However, my inspiration for podcasting, Mr. Ralph Garman and Kevin Smith, dubbed this movie that will suck. And it is definitely a movie that will suck. So, we'll just have to see where it goes from here. Warner Brothers has picked up the rights to Chris Weitz's The Young World. The Young World is a trilogy of books, and it is described as follows. The Young World is the gripping first installment of a trilogy set in the not-so-distant future in a post-apocalyptic New York City following the catastrophic destruction of the world as we know it. An unknown trauma has left every child and adult on Earth dead, but, for unknown reasons, teenagers are spared. Anyone between the onset of puberty and the age of 21 are in a world with no authority figures, and while that world would normally be a teenager's fantasy, this world has no heat, running water, television, video games, phones, or internet. Teenagers are the heirs to a world brought back to the Stone Age, and now they must learn to master it in order to survive. Not sure where this is going. I might dub this a movie that will suck. So, Weitz, who's the producer of the film, he also wrote the book, so he's the producer and director and an adapter for this film, and he has worked on such films as The Golden Compass, About a Boy, and unfortunately Twilight New Moon. DreamWorks has their own plans for a literary trilogy called The Fire Sermon. It is set in a post-apocalyptic 25th century. That seems to be a theme here. The Fire Sermon has humanity evolved without technology, and all children are born as twins. The Alpha Twins represent a ruling class, while the mutated Omega twins are treated as lower-class individuals and sent to live in their own villages. The catch is that when one twin dies, so does the other. So the story follows a brother and sister pair, of one of whom rises up to become a ruler amongst the Omegas. So, should be interesting. This one actually sounds to me a little bit more interesting than the last one. Joss Whedon has said that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch will be a huge part of the Avengers Part 2. He was interviewed and asked about the Bryan Singer Quicksilver for X-Men Days of Future Past, and Whedon said, I'm really excited about it, and I don't know what they're doing, but I'm determinedly not knowing what they're doing because they'll do their thing, I have mine to do. They're a huge part of Marvel's The Avengers too. And this, remember, goes back to the agreement that 20th Century Fox and Marvel have that they can both use them. However, as Kevin Feige has said, we both have them. There's a specific arrangement with those two characters that would allow us to use them with Avengers, but not discuss or reference their mutant or Magneto-related lineage. They can use them as mutants and as Magneto's relatives, but cannot have anything to do with the Avengers. I think it actually makes... In reality, it makes more sense for Fox to use them, because they can make the references to the mutant and Magneto-related lineage, which is a big part of who they are, and they just can't mention the Avengers, whereas the Avengers cannot mention that Magneto-related lineage, and that is kind of key, I think, especially when Scarlet Witch goes absolutely batshit crazy. Okay, also at the same time they interviewed Whedon, they asked him about how he feels to have met with such tremendous success after earlier projects, specifically Wonder Woman, which was set with Warner Brothers, failed to get off the ground. He says, it's like grief. There's a period of anger when you're like, hey, remember all those times I told you it would have worked? They believed me, and it did. So now I'm going to get angry about the stuff that I had pretty much dealt with. You do kind of want to have a slap line of everybody you had previously worked for, but I'm luckier than most people, so you get over that. So I could just see this executives at Warner Brothers lining up, and Whedon just going down this line going, smack, 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 smack. Idiots, morons, buffleheads, like broomheads, idiots. God, you are so stupid. You could have had this guy in your stable and working on making DC Universe huge and popular in the movie world. No. What do you get? A solemn, gritty Batman, which was great. Don't forget, they were a great series, but they humanized Superman, which he's not a human. He's a fracking god. It's just... They've made too much... I find Warner Brothers has screwed up the cinematic universe. I will go see anything they make, of course, that's comic book related. That's just what I am. But they've screwed up so much because they've tried to make everything realistic. They're comic books. They're fantasy. They're not real. Make them unrealistic. It has been proven by Marvel that you can do this and people will go in droves. The Avengers was a true comic book movie. It was fantastical. It had story. It had intrigue. It had action, adventure, ups and downs, CG, real effects. It just used everything and poured it all into it. And they shut this guy down when he wrote a Wonder Woman script. Do they not know who this man is? This man gave us, as I've mentioned numerous occasions, characters like Buffy and Echo from Dollhouse. I can't think of her name from Serenity. 2 kick-ass babes in Serenity. You had Wash's wife, and you had Summer Glau, who played... why can't I think of the character names? I think you know where I'm going with this. It's just absolutely crazy to not trust a man who has written such strong female roles with Wonder Woman. Because Wonder Woman is a strong female role. But I digress. So let's move on. The Terminator movie that will be coming out June 26, 2015, will actually be first in a standalone trilogy. It will be almost a reboot in essence of the whole thing. So I don't know if they're going to go Terminator 1, 2, 3 per verbatim, but it will be rebooted. It's going to be a rebooted Terminator movie, and it will be a standalone trilogy. So forget everything that happened before. This is a new Terminator. That's basically what it's saying. Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio will be reteaming as they worked together on Django Unchained, which did really well this past year. Leonardo and Jamie will be reteaming for the movie called Mean Business. The site describes the story as follows, and that site being that site being the movie website for Mean Business. DiCaprio is a hardened detective who, after being told by a man that his beautiful wife is missing, tells him she is a hooker who obviously made off with his money. After the man commits a desperate, tragic act right in the squad room, the disgraced detective is sent to a hellhole, Rust Belt town called Victory, Missouri, where violent crime is skyrocketing. Partnered with an equally badass detective who is demoted for publicly brutalizing a suspect, who is going to be played by Jamie Foxx, the new partners get to do some real work. Police officers start showing up dead execution style, and the cops think it might be open season on Victory's police department. Craig Zahler will be writing the script. It looks like it's going to be released through Warner Brothers. I don't see a director as of yet, so keep you posted on that. It does sound interesting. It sounds like another buddy cop movie, more of an action than action comedy one. Speaking of guys who usually do cop movies or action movies, Marky Mark and Peter Berg will be together in American Desperado. This is a mafia soldier to cocaine cowboy to secret government assets. That's that's the name, the long title of the name, American Desperado. It's based on an adaptation by John Roberts and Evan Wrights. The full title again, American Desperado: My Life from Mafia Soldier to Cocaine Cowboy to Secret Government Asset. Peter Berg will direct the film and star Marky Mark. The script will be penned by William Monahan. 50 Shades of Grey fans, there is a release date for the movie. 50 Shades of Grey, as I said earlier, last week or the week before, will be directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. The script is going to be written by Kelly Marcel, and this will be coming out August 1st, 2014. So next summer, August 1st, 2014, and Universal Pictures and Focus Features will be releasing this together. Zack Snyder is talking Man of Steel 2, or the Man of Steel sequel, because we don't know. There's been a lot of sequels lately that have not used 2 as the sequel number. Snyder says that they will soon present their ideas to the studio. He says, I haven't yet gotten to speak to the studio about all these awesome details because I've been overseas on the junket. So my hope is when I get home I can sit down with everyone and it'll be like, okay, so what are we going to do? We need to do something. We almost destroyed the world last time. Now what? As far as the Justice League movie, he says, I really wanted to expand the DC universe, and I really wanted to make sure in Superman's world that all that is a possibility. That was the only thing he said about a Justice League movie. So, Man of Steel, the sequel, will be out probably in 3 years, I would say. Depending on when they want to do Justice League, because don't forget Justice League is slated for 2015, which would kind of make making a Man of Steel sequel hard to do. Paul W.S. Anderson, the director of the Resident Evil franchise, of late he has said that Resident Evil 6 will start shooting this fall, and once again Mila Jovovich will star in probably the final Resident Evil 6. There's no official subtitle yet. He's working on I'm not sure if he's working on a movie right now. But yes, there is no details at this time. This is just that they will be starting shooting this fall with a September 12th release date. Oh wait, before I move on, that is the tentative release date. Mila Jovovich thinks the film might not be out till 2015. So it could be next year, it could be the year after. More Joss Whedon news, and I probably should have grouped this with the other Joss Whedon news, but it was so different that I wanted to keep it separate, put some space in there. Joss Whedon was not sold on the idea of Guardians of the Galaxy at first. He said he was very susceptible? No, very skeptical about it. Then he came to see some of the stuff coming together, and this is what he had to say. It seemed out there to me initially when the idea came from Kevin Feige. I sort of went, I don't know about this. Then they brought on James Gunn, and as soon as they said James, the movie started to make sense to me in a way that it hadn't. I was like, oh, this isn't a guy that's going to chase Star Wars. He's going to make a James Gunn movie. And James' first thing was, oh, I love Rocket. It's all the raccoon. People were like, really? A raccoon? He was like, the raccoon is the heart. And knowing that, I felt very safe. And casting Chris Pratt, I was just there before they started production and seeing all the designs and stuff. I got really jealous. I was like, why can't I make this movie? I really got turned 180 on that one. So Joss is now totally on board with Guardians of the Galaxy, who we still don't have voice actors for that aforementioned raccoon, Rocket Raccoon, or the tree type character Groot. So have to wait and see. Hellboy 3. It might find a home somewhere, possibly at Legendary. Legendary is putting out the movie Pacific Rim. They're involved with that, which is a Guillermo del Toro movie, and Ron Perlman is in it. They were asked... Del Toro told in an interview, or in a one-on-one chat with Perlman, said they were talking about the prospect of Hellboy 3. He says, I hate giving pieces about it, but last night we were at dinner and Ron said, I'd be very happy to do Hellboy again. When are we doing Hellboy 3? And I said, I would love to see Hellboy 3, but we'll have to wait and see. Then in the morning, Perlman talked with Legendary Pictures head Thomas Tull, and he said that it's definitely a possibility. Thomas Tull commented and said he didn't say much. He said that there's rights issues that would need to be sorted for Legendary to get involved. So it's a possibility that Legendary could acquire the rights to Hellboy 3. And on that note, excuse me, Ron Perlman went on to say, Hellboy 3 needs to be twice as big as Hellboy 1 or Hellboy 2. It's all of these oracles coming home to roost with these apocalyptic things taking place. Guillermo's version of this resolve in the trilogy is epic in scope. Not just anybody can make this movie. It has to be somebody who's no stranger to this sense of scope. For me to do Hellboy 3, it could kill me in terms of physically demanding for a guy my age. But it's worth it because anyone who sits and listens to Guillermo's version of how this thing ends is completely seduced. It's so theoretical and compelling that if you like the first two movies in any way, shape, or form, this is the ultimate 1-2 punch. So definitely, there is a script, there is plans, there is willingness. We just need somebody to distribute it. So whoever owns the rights, and you know what, I'm just going to Google that right now. Google, not a sponsor, by the way, to this franchise because it definitely needs to be put into production, and if Legendary Pictures wants to do it, then I would say that they have to look into doing it properly, and obviously that means acquiring the rights from Columbia Pictures. Revolution Studios and produced it. Columbia Pictures distributed it. So those two companies would have to agree to let Legendary take it over. And then maybe we could see a Hellboy 3, and hopefully see a Hellboy 3. Now, to all those fanboys out there, and I kind of resent being called one by my podcasting colleague. Yeah, I guess I am a kind of a fanboy, but I'm not the type of fanboy who isn't educated. I do a lot of research in my fandom, because while there's things that I'm a fan of, I understand there's equal amount of people who don't like it. And while I don't like something, there are an equal amount of people that do like it. However, everybody keeps saying over and over and over again that Christian Bale will come back and don the cape and cowl for Justice League movie. Wrong answer, because Chris Nolan has said that his contract is done with Man of Steel. Christian Bale, in a press release, interviews, has said he will never do it, and here's what he told Entertainment Weekly, not a sponsor. We were incredibly fortunate to get to make 3 Batman films. That's enough. Let's not get greedy. Nolan always said he wanted to make it 1 film at a time, and we ended up sitting there looking at each other saying, we're about to make the 3rd. We never really knew if we were going to get to be there, but that was how it was going to be, and this is where it should all end. I have no information, no knowledge about anything. I've literally not had a conversation with a living soul. I understand that they may be making a Justice League movie. That's it. It's a torch that should be handed from one actor to another. So, I enjoy looking forward to what somebody else will come up with. Give it up, folks. There will be no Christian Bale Batman in any way, shape, or form in any Justice League movie or any Batman movie going forward. There will be a new Batman. Deal with it. Alright, so let's move on to some bit of television news. Very little bit of television news. Just kind of going off of, no television news. That's old news. I did that last week. So, let's get into some fun news then. So that is it for the entertainment news, actually. We'll end that segment. But some fun news, mostly for those people living in the States. The reason being because here in Canada, the product in question that I'm about to mention was distributed by a different company, and so we never lost them. However, Twinkies by Hostess in the States was bankrupt and closed down. There were no more Twinkies. However, as of July 15th, in basically when you're listening to this, 12 days from when you're listening to this, Twinkies will be back on the shelves. That's right, Hostess has made some agreements. There have been some workings after the bankrupt and the acrimonious fight with union workers. Everything has been solved and settled, and Hostess Twinkies will be back on the shelf. The golden sponge cake with creamy filling will be back on shelves July 15th. Kevin Smith, I know you're not listening to the podcast, but if you are, that's awesome. And 2, Twinkies are back. Okay, so let's take a little break here. Wait, no, let's not take a little break. I forgot something in entertainment news. It's not really entertainment news. For those of you who listen to all the shows on the Ehnother Podcast Network, last week on Ehnother Monday, on the Ehnother Podcast with OJ and James, they discussed a possible JLA movie. And I meant to, that's why I kind of saved the Batman thing till the end, because I wanted to do it then, but the Twinkies just kind of snuck in there. They had talked about possible cast members. I disagree with 90% of their choices, but hey, that's why you're making them up, because they probably will never be cast members. The only one certain right now is probably Henry Cavill. So here are my choices for possible cast members. Alright, so Superman is set. Henry Cavill. Batman, I picked Jensen Ackles. For those of you who are Supernatural fans, you know this man to be quite intimidating at times, and I think could definitely pull off a great Bruce Wayne and Dark Knight in one, and do quite a good job with it, in fact. My Wonder Woman would not be a 50-year-old woman. I would go a little lower, and I would cast Summer Glau. Summer Glau proved she could kick ass in Serenity. She proved she could kick ass in the short-lived Terminator Salvation or Terminator, I forget the name of the series, but the television series where she played a Terminator. I think she would be a wonderful Wonder Woman. My first choice was Zoe Saldana. However, she is so busy with other things, it just wouldn't be logistically possible for her to be in this. Plus, working on Guardians of the Galaxy means, she'd kind of be doing disservice by going over and doing a DC movie as well. But hey, you go where the money is, and you go where they're going to hire you. But at the same time, I think she's going to be quite set for quite some time between Star Trek and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Summer Glau would be my Wonder Woman choice. The Flash has to be Neil Patrick Harris, in my opinion. I think NPH is the perfect actor to play the Flash. Green Lantern. Now, I did not hate Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern, but it left a sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths. It was a decent movie, in my opinion. There were some flaws, obviously. Most of it had to do with the script. I don't blame Reynolds. So, while I agree with my colleagues that it might be good to keep Ryan Reynolds in this role, I just don't see it happening with the bad taste that it left in Warner Brothers' mouths. Green Lantern was a flop for them. You can't deny the numbers when it comes to a studio. The studio is going to look at the numbers. They don't care about the actor. They care about numbers. They care about money. It's all about money. It's all about the almighty dollar. I keep telling people this, but they don't listen. They like, oh, well, we know, but this is our opinion. Yes, you're right. You're entitled to my opinion. This is my podcast. This is my opinion. My opinion is that in order to totally disassociate with the Green Lantern that came out, that for the Justice League movie, let's make it Jon Stewart, Green Lantern. And you go with Anthony Mackie to play this version of the Green Lantern, in my opinion. Martian Manhunter, I think you gotta go Idris Elba. I know a few of my friends on my comic book forum in Facebook will definitely agree with me on this. Idris Elba is definitely a perfect Martian Manhunter, in my opinion. I think that he would do an extremely well job on it. Extremely good job, something like that. I think he'd be very good for the part. Green Arrow, and again, I have to go against my colleague, fellow podcaster, because no television star should ever convert that character to the movie. Tom Welling did not do it when they did Superman Returns. I was proud of him for doing that. Stephen Amell cannot be Green Arrow in a Justice League movie. It would be wrong. It'd be like saying when they did Arrow to cast Justin Hartley to play the role of Green Arrow, since everybody knew him as Oliver Queen and / Green Arrow from Smallville. It just didn't make sense. You needed somebody new. So in this, you have to get somebody new, and my pick in this would be Alex Pettyfer. Aquaman, the guy I didn't care for too much, but I looked around and some things stuck in my head, and I thought, you never know. He's not well known, but Eddie Redmayne is my pick to play Aquaman. As for the enemy, now, my colleagues, partners, whatever you want to call them at this point, had no idea who could be the enemy of the Justice League. Well, why not start with their first major enemy, the enemy that brought them all together? This is going to be kind of an Origins Justice League movie, right? You're going to bring them all together, especially considering they're not doing any solo movies until after Justice League. They're doing it ass backwards as opposed to Marvel. Like, the only solo movie you're going to have is Man of Steel. And there's something that could take hours and hours to continue to discuss. But I think you go with Starro. Starro comes... Now, for those of you who don't know, Starro comes from an alien race known as the Star Conquerors. He uses his mind control powers and his power to make psychic parasitic clones to help him conquer planets. He puts the small starfish clone over a person's face to control them. In his earliest appearance, he mutated ordinary Earth starfish into giant monsters and controlled them through rampage. I think this would be the perfect character to bring in as the big bad, so to speak, simply because he was the reason the original Justice League got together. And you also got to remember, and I want to point this out to my fellow colleagues, Green Arrow is technically not an original founding member of the Justice League. So he might not even be in the movie. I think they should put him in the movie. Don't get me wrong, but he might not even be in the movie. He doesn't need to be. He's not a founding member. And as for a cast member, the cast member that came to mind when I looked at images of Starro, because I must admit I did not know what he might look like, but the first images and first actor that came to mind for me was Dominic Purcell. So there's my kind of dream, unquote, theoretical cast for a Justice League movie. I think it might be way too expensive, but hey, it's a theory, it's a guess. There probably will be actors that will be unknowns at the time Justice League is made. So that, my friends, is the end of entertainment news, finally. And I will take a little break before we get to the final segment of sports.
Hi, I'm Rob Succhetto, and you're listening to Ehnotherpodcast.com. Hi, I'm Rob Succhetto, creator of Zombie Portraits. You can check out Zombie Portraits at zombieportraits.com.
As always, remember to check out Rob's work. Go to zombieportraits.com. So, thank you, Rob. And moving on to the final segment of the show, sports news. Now, as I said last week, hockey's over. However, there's still some hockey news. First bit of hockey news, and it's breaking news, so just 1 second. So as of this recording, breaking news, Vincent Lecavalier, who was recently bought out by the Tampa Bay Lightning and will be a free agent as of July 5th, on that day, he will officially become a Philadelphia Flyer. Vincent Lecavalier has agreed to a 5-year contract with the Philadelphia Flyers, basically with an average annual salary of $4.5 million. Lecavalier was definitely sought hardly by at least a dozen teams. He was bought out of the final 7 years of a huge contract that he had signed with Tampa Bay. And brings 14 years of NHL experience to the Philadelphia Flyers. I am very disappointed in this, mostly because I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and I don't want to see him on a team with a shitty goalie. Not that Toronto has a great goalie, but they have a better goalie than Philly. Lecavalier has accumulated 383 goals and 874 points in his 1,037 regular season games. He is a former Art Ross Trophy winner. Art Ross Trophy winner. He's a former Rocket Richard winner. He's also won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy. He's won a Stanley Cup. I mean, he's pretty much done it all. So I believe that Philadelphia is definitely getting a great player in Vinny Lecavalier. For those of you who follow the NHL, you know that each team is allowed 2 compliance buyouts with the new CBA that was signed. They gave us our 42-game season. There is a couple of windows where they can buy out a player for the rest of his salary, for the rest of his contract. He becomes an unrestricted free agent, and the team doesn't have to worry about his salary as it pertains to the cap. They do have to pay 2/3 of the remaining contract across twice the remaining terms of the deal. For example, if a player has 1 year left on the contract and they make $3 million, the team would have to pay that man $2 million over the next 2 years. So basically $1 million a year over the next 2 years. That's kind of how it would boil down to, just basic math. I'm using basic formulas. There's obviously a lot of numbers because nobody just makes 3 million. It's like 3.33, or you get what I'm saying. So they have from June 26th, 11 p.m. on June 26th is when the first window opened, and that will close 5 p.m. July 4th. Now here are the buyouts so far. Scott Gomez and Thomas Kaberle were bought out by the Montreal Canadiens. Scott Gomez very early on. Thomas Kaberle not more recently. Wade Redden was bought out by the New York Rangers. So they've only used one of theirs. Vincent Lecavalier, as I said, was bought out by the Tampa Bay Lightning, so they still have one remaining. Teams that have used both so far: Montreal, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Chicago has bought out Steve Montador and Ratislav Olesh. Philadelphia has also used both of theirs. They bought out Danny Briere and Ilya Brizgalov. Other teams that have bought out players, the New York Islanders got out of their very long contract with Rick DiPietro. He's been bought out. And the Toronto Maple Leafs have even bought out Mr. Mike Komisarek. Mike Komisarek was barely used this past year in the 42-game season. He ended up playing only 4 NHL games, played most of the rest of the year in the Marlies when he was sent on waivers in March. He's a classy guy. I liked watching him when he was in Montreal. I liked it even more when he was in Toronto, but he just never seemed to find a home. He did have many injuries, and he even had them in Montreal. A friend of mine who's a big Montreal fan said, enjoy the injury-riddled Mike Komisarek. And apparently we did, because, we had him, and then we got rid of him. A trade happened today. Gagliardi was traded from the Sharks to the Flames. He's a forward, TJ Gagliardi. The Flames give up a 4th-round pick in the 2015 NHL entry draft, and immediately the Calgary Flames have signed Gagliardi to an extension. There are 13 high-profile free agents. Actually, there's only 12, because when this list was made, Vincent Lecavalier was on the list. As I just said, he was signed by the Philadelphia Flyers, or he will be signed officially on the 5th when free agency opens. So here are the top 12, I guess, free agents, most notable unrestricted free agents. Danny Briere was bought out by the Philadelphia Flyers, as I said, so he's going to be available. Ilya Bryzgalov, again, bought out by the Flyers, so he is available. David Clarkson, formerly of the Devils, who could still be a Devil, but he's available. Ryan Clough of the Sharks, available. Actually, no, sorry, he was of the Rangers. He was traded to the Rangers, that's right. So he might resign there, actually. That's a good possibility. Pascal Dupuis is a unrestricted free agent. Andrew Ference, an unrestricted free agent. Valtteri Filppula, an unrestricted free agent. Nathan Horton, an unrestricted free agent. Jaromir Jagr, who at 41 can still play. And he wasn't as productive as he was hoping. He had no goals and 10 assists in the playoffs, but he did have some. He says he wants to play next year, and you know what? If he has 35 points this past season, I'm hoping that translates into about a 60-point season over an 82-game schedule. Mike Ribeiro is a unrestricted free agent, Rob Scuderi, and Stephen Weiss. So those are your most notable unrestricted free agents. As they get signed, I will add them to our signing list of players when I do the stats, or the sports section. One other note, it looks like the Colorado Avalanche have already said that they cannot wait to see Nathan MacKinnon play. We're going to be very patient at the start and give him a chance to adapt. Patrick Waugh has seen him play in junior. He says, I'm not going to compare junior hockey to the NHL. I'm just going to give him time to feel good. Waugh has said in the past, before they drafted him, that he was probably going to play or start training camp on the third line center, and then go from there. We're going to wait and see. They say, Joe Sakic says, we can't wait to see him out there. We can't wait to have our fans see him out there, but we're not rushing the kid. So, we'll just have to see what happens. Moving on to baseball news, let's get to our standings. The American League, your AL East leading Boston Red Sox with a 50-34 record. Then the AL West leading Texas Rangers, 48-34 record. And the AL Central leading Cleveland Indians, 44-38 record. Your current wild card leaders, the Oakland Athletics, with a 48-35 record, are the number 1 wild card, and the number 2 wild card are Baltimore Orioles with a 47-36 record. My Toronto Blue Jays and your Toronto Blue Jays, if you're Canadian, are 5.5 back in the wild card, and they are sitting at an even 541-41 record. Now, that being said, I believe they are currently losing their game against the Detroit Tigers, which would drop them to one below at 41-42. In this, they have a 4-game series against the Tigers, began on Canada Day Monday, which they won, and they are currently trailing the Tigers It's just been tied. They're currently tied with the Tigers 6-6. So maybe they can be a 42-41 instead of a 41-42. So it's hard to say what's going to happen there. I'm going to guess that there's going to be more scoring to come. These are both offensive teams, so we'll have to see. Moving over to the National League, your National League Central leaders are the Pittsburgh Pirates with a 51-30 record, who are trying to make the playoffs for the first time in a very long time. Your NL East leading team is the Atlanta Braves with 48-34 record, and the NL West is the Arizona Diamondbacks with a 42-40 record. I'm just wanting to see something here. Yes, the Pittsburgh Pirates are actually leading the majors currently right now with that 51-30 record and a .630 winning percentage. Go Pirates! The wild card leaders in the National League, the St. Louis Cardinals with a 49-32 record hold the first wild card, and the second wild card right now belongs to the Cincinnati Reds with a 47-36 record. So that's the standings. Let's get to some statistics. The average leaders are Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers with a .369 batting average, Yadier Molina of the Cardinals with a .345 batting average, Michael Kadire of the Rockies with a .344 batting average, Chris Davis of the Orioles with a .332 batting average, and Jean Segura of the Brewers with a .325 batting average. Your home run leaders, Chris Davis of the Orioles with 31 home runs, Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers with 25 home runs, Edwin Encarnacion of the Jays with 23 home runs, Carlos Gonzalez of the Rockies with 22 home runs, and Adam Dunn of the White Sox and Dominic Brown of the Phillies, each with 21 home runs. Your RBI leaders, Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers with 82 RBIs, Chris Davis of the Orioles, who batted in 10 more RBIs this week, making his the last 2 weeks driving in 20 runs. He now sits at 80 RBIs, 2 behind of Cabrera. Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks with 69 RBIs, so you see there's quite a big gap now. Edwin Encarnacion of the Jays with 66 RBIs, and then Alan Craig of the Cardinals and Prince Fielder of the Tigers, each with 63 RBIs. Your stolen base leaders, Jacoby Ellsbury of the Red Sox with 32 stolen bases, Everett Cabrera of the Padres with 31 stolen bases, and I note that he's on the DL, so he could start slipping down the charts until he comes back. Nate McLouth of the Orioles has 24 stolen bases. Also with 24 stolen bases, Jean Segura. And of note, he is the only guy in the top 5 to get a stolen base this week. So no one else, not Jacoby, not Everett, who's obviously on the DL, so can't, not Nate, and not even the last guy, Starling Marte of the Pirates, who has 22 stolen bases. Jean Segura is the only guy to get a stolen base this week. ERA leaders, Clay Buchholz of the Red Sox with a 1.71 ERA, Matt Harvey of the Mets with a 2.0 ERA, Jeff Locke of the Pirates with a 2.06 ERA, Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers with a 2.08 ERA, and Patrick Corbin of the Diamondbacks with a 2.22 ERA. And I think it's pretty amazing to note that 4 of the top 5 ERA leaders are National League pitchers. Now, this could be skewed a bit because sometimes they don't pitch deep into games. So they're not giving up those late inning runs because they also have to hit. So they get pulled in the 6th and 7th innings sometimes. A lot more than American League starters who don't have to hit. So take that into some consideration. Pitching wins. Max Scherzer of the Tigers and Jordan Zimmerman of the Nationals, each with 12 wins. Bartolo Colon of the Athletics, Matt Moore of the Rays, and Adam Wainwright of the Cardinals, each with 11 wins. Strikeout leaders. Yu Darvish with 151 leads the way. Matt Harvey of the Mets has 132, and Yu Darvish is of the Rangers, in case you didn't know. Max Scherzer of the Tigers has 131. Justin Masterson of the Indians has 125 strikeouts, and Felix Hernandez rounds out the top 5 of the Seattle Mariners with 123 strikeouts. And final stat category, the save leaders. Jim Johnson of the Orioles has 28 saves. Jason Gurley of the Pirates and Joe Nathan of the Rangers, each with 27 saves. And Mariano Rivera of the Yankees has 26 saves. And rounding out the top 5 for saves, Craig Kimbrell of the Atlanta Braves with 23. That is your statistics for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm wrapping it up because that is it. I have nothing left to report. I'm hoping to start in on some football news soon as we get closer and closer to training camps. So far, no word on whether you guys want me to do anything with the CFL. I probably won't, but maybe we'll do some standings or something. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick to the sports that I really follow a lot more. That way, it's good for me as well as you. Because if I enjoy it, then I'll be passionate about it and want to do it. Otherwise, this has been Rayzor with another Warlock Hour. Remember to tune in every week for the shows here on Ehnother Podcast Network, and you can find us on ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Find us on iTunes, on Stitcher.com, and also you can check out old episodes of Warlock Wednesdays on YouTube, and we're starting to get the old episodes of Ehnother Podcast and Real Music onto YouTube. I think there's about 7 of the earlier episodes on there right now. I'm personally working on that, so I'm trying to get it done. And I hope that we'll get more and more on there because we're going to have to start clearing space on the Ehnother Podcast website. Otherwise, we won't be able to do any more new ones. So remember to come back every week. We're here all the time, even if some of the shows have to be canned shows, as James likes to say. I tend to try to do my shows every week, but you never know. Something might come up, and I might have to just throw in a little bit from an earlier recording or something. But, hey, as long as you keep listening, we'll keep talking. Have a good one, everybody. I'm out. Thanks for listening to Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.